to sometimes step back out of your flesh and say, I know that God's calling me to do something, and I know it may be hard, but I have to be, how much do you have to really ask yourself, do you love the Lord enough to say, I'm going to step out of the boat? And sometimes that boat's very, very, very scary. But I know the Word says that Lord will make even my mistakes turn good. If I do it from the heart and I'm following what He wants me to do, and I realize that maybe I'm going down the wrong road, I need to change my direction. And sometimes it's about simply taking that rudder of that boat and changing that direction. That God can say, okay, now we're back on the same road together. Instead of you going off away from me, because when you go away from me, nothing good's going to happen for you. Amen? Mm-hmm. All right. 2, Jonah's prayer. From inside the fish, Jonah prayed to the Lord, his God, and he said, in my distress, I called to the Lord, and He answered me. From the depths of the grave, I called for help, and you listened to my cry. You hurled me into the deep, into the very heart of the seas, and the currents swirled about me. All your waves and breakers swept over me, and I said, I have been banished from your sight, yet I will look again toward your holy temple. The engulfing waters threatened me, and the deep surrounded me. Seaweed was wrapped around my head. To the roots of the mountains I sank down. The earth beneath me barred me in forever. But you brought my life up from the pit. O Lord my God. This almost sounds like he died rather than just got swallowed up. Because, it says here, but you brought me up from the life of the pit. Oh my God. When my life was ebbing away, I remembered you, Lord, and my prayer rose to you and to your holy temple. Those who cling to worthless idols forfeit the grace that could be theirs. But I, with a song of thanksgiving, will sacrifice to you what I have vowed I will make good. Salvation comes from the Lord. And the Lord commanded the fish to vomit Jonah unto the land. The Lord at this time, what happened? He really realized at this point in time, he finally got Jonah to a place of submission. And when you get to that point, you're at a good place. Because you've had to go around the issues of life, which each one of us has our own trials and our own issues and our own problems. Yours are different from mine, and mine are different from yours. We all have them. We all know when God, if you know God, you know when God's speaking to you to do something. You know when God's speaking to you to change your direction. And you have to get to a point. He got Jonah finally to a point, I don't care what I have to go through now. I just want to do what you want me to do. I see your hand on my problem and on my issues of what you call me to do. I need to make a change because I don't want to suffer this no more. Amen? Mm-hmm. So God made his circumstances worse than if he would have said yes and went there the first time. Well, that's a tendency God has with everything. Sometimes he'll let you walk around that mountain for years and years and years. But the same thing, you will not run from the issues of God, what he's brought to your face and to your ears and to your heart. You'll run, but eventually you're going to have to, it's going to keep coming back, and you're going to have to deal with it. In other words, you're only going to be able to bob and weave so long through that 15-round fight. Eventually, if you don't come to a place to where you can deal with it, and whether you lack faith, whether you lack believing, whatever it is, you eventually were going to have to deal with it. So that's what he did with Jonah in this story. He got him and brought his circumstances to a place where he was willing to say, I'm ready to deal with whatever you want me to do. God's calling us all not to have to go through that. Very easy and simple. Well, it's not easy. Sometimes we perceive it as very, very hard, or even we perceive it as something that we can't do. But we have to always have faith that we can do all things through God who strengthens us. Amen? Mm-hmm. No matter how hard it is. And sometimes we may seem like God, you're asking me to be foolish. No, God's just asking you to grow up and do the spiritual thing He wants you to do, because it's not always about you. It's about trying to touch other people's lives. But through that touching other people's lives, it's going to help you to grow up spiritually. And that's what it's all about. It's about growing up. Amen? All right, moving on to 3. Then the word of the Lord came to Jonah a second time. Go to the great city of Nineveh, proclaim it to the message I have given you. Jonah, more or less, it should have said, jumped up and said, I'm ready, Lord. I'm going to obey. Jonah obeyed the word of the Lord and went to Nineveh. Now Nineveh was a very important city to visit, required 3 days on the first day. Jonah started into the city and proclaimed 40 more days, and Nineveh will be overturned. And Ninevites believed God. Then declared a fast for all of them, from the greatest to the least, put on sackcloth. And when the news reached the king of Nineveh, he rose from his throne, took off his royal robes, covered himself in sackcloth, and sat down in the dust. Then he issued a proclamation to Nineveh. See, the whole thing wasn't really, the story really wasn't about Jonah. The only reason this should have been a 1-chapter story. Jonah would have said yes, it would have been one little small chapter in the Bible. Jonah made it 4. Amen? That's all he had to do was say yes, and it would have been one little chapter in the Bible. But he said no, but the whole reason God sent him was to save the Nineveh. Yeah, Nineveh. Because these people finally wind up, in what we just read, repenting. So let's see what God says after that. By the decrees of the king and of his nobles, do not let any man or beast, herd or flock taste anything. Do not let them eat or drink. But let man and beast be covered with sackcloth. Let everyone call urgently to God. Let them give up their evil ways and their violence. Who knows, God may yet relent and with compassion turn his fierce anger so that we will not perish. When God saw what they did and how they turned from their evil ways, he had compassion and did not bring upon them the destruction he had threatened. Amen. So because he got Jonah to finally go to do what he wanted them to do in the first place, Nineveh gets saved. They don't get wiped out. They don't go under God's hand. Amen? So, just remember, I think this is a lesson here that tells us, whatever God's calling you to do, there may be a Nineveh in your path somewhere. Meaning a person or a bunch of people that need to hear whatever you have to say or whatever God's called you to say. And don't ever think, this story is big, but our God's big. Don't ever think just because you don't have a plaque or a piece of paper saying you're a minister, don't think that God can't use you like he used Moses to bring his people out. Don't worry what to say. Just go. I'll tell you what to say when you get there. Don't think that you can't touch people's lives, and don't be in fear of anything God calls you to do. God is going to give you everything that you need to get it done, if that's his will. He never has you do anything, send you anywhere, or go any place that he is not going to provide. He provided for 6 million Israelites. He provided for every story in the Bible. He provided for everybody that was doing his work and his will. He made sure that they were going to be able to get done what they needed to get done. Amen? Mm-hmm. So in saying that, closing, I just want to say, why does God bring trials? Well, he wants to get our attention. He wants to capture your attention. He'll speak to you through the Bible. He'll speak to you through voice. He'll speak through you through prayer and through your heart. And we pretty much know, if you're got a little bit of grown